Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast, where we discuss and debate the latest news regarding course cutters, bandits, and bib mules.
Welcome to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Murphy, along with Scott Coomer. Scott, say hello.
Hey, everybody.
All right. Tonight, we are joined by Rich Heller, and I've been wanting to talk about Kip Litton's story for a while. I've never written about Kip. It was a story that fascinated many on the Let's Run website regarding a runner who's alleged to have cheated at many races. He had an article written about him in the New Yorker. He went so far as to fabricate an entire race. So there's so much into, and we'll get into all that in detail. But my guest here today is Rich Heller, and Rich created a blog, I guess many years ago now, kind of detailing Kip Litton and really going in the same kind of detail in certain races that you would see on the Marathon Investigation site, really probably in more detail. And this is all just about one runner over multiple races. So I figured who better to give the entire story and of Kip Litton than Rich Heller. Rich, thanks for coming on.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much for having me. It all started on letsrun.com, I think in about 2010. So what is that, 9 years ago?
Yeah.
And just thousands of posts back then on this guy, Kip Litton, who really came across like a real psychopath in terms of changing shoes and just all the different circumstances posters on Let's Run, these letsrun.com forums noticed.
Yeah, and we'll start
back that far.
Yeah, really kind of go back to with Kip Litton, maybe just give the quick, the quick overview, and then we'll kind of get into the weeds a little bit.
Sure. I think I really didn't get involved for a few months. I think someone had, it might have started, I think it started with Kyle Strode, who had a runner, a very good Masters runner in the 240s out of Montana. And I think Kip Litton had actually been disqualified by the race directors at a few marathons out there. That at the time Kip Litton was trying, from what I remember, to run a sub 3 hour marathon in all 50 states.
Yes.
And I think it was in Montana. The race was already at 3,000 feet altitude, which has some effect on trying to run a good marathon time. And for Kip to go out there and just and show up and try to run, I think he crossed the finish line in 2:47, but then was disqualified because people didn't see him. And that and maybe a couple races in Michigan with a very good runner out there and race director Scott Hubbard. Scott Hubbard is well known in the Michigan race community, kind of near where Kip Litton is from. Kip Litton's from Michigan. And from what I understand, Scott, in being a race director at some races there, had found that Kip had cheated there and disqualified him there. And so I think some posters to Let's Run kind of got it started from there. And then from there, letsrun.com being a really fun site for people to just anonymously post.
Yes.
Trolling And I think from there, it kind of got the ball rolling. And then from there, posters would just go on there, myself as well as other college and open runners who would run marathons around the area and just like, wow, what is up with this guy's splits? And I think that back then there was no marathoninvestigations.com like there is now. And just kind of going through the splits and seeing these ridiculous pace changes as you know, Derek, from seeing pace changes from someone who runs 8-minute miles or even 6-minute miles to suddenly running 4-minute miles. It's a really good community on Let's Run because you're able to see just how, the community there of runners, there tend to be serious runners and they just understand that better than maybe the general public sometimes. Nothing against the general public, but, because maybe they're not serious runners. They may not understand how it's impossible to run, or I should say impossible, but extremely unlikely to go from running 8-minute miles to then running 5:10 or something.
And that's kind of like the Mike Rossi effect, and people say, he can improve. People who don't know, it's like, he could have done that. It's only 30 minutes faster than his other marathon or the pace. So you need to kind of.
Can I ask a quick, a background question? Leading up to this, had there been any high-profile cheating, any cheating allegations? Were you familiar with any? I mean, other than maybe like Rosie Ruiz or something that was just like in the news. But was this something that ever happened with respect to just everyday runners? Prior to that, or was this the first time you remember there being the blood in the water and the sharks are circling the cheater?
Not that I know of, and it's really interesting because I think it was basically the age of race photography and having the race photographers who randomly take pictures on the course because they're trying to sell photos, and having those all archived online where people can go do searches and see outfit changes and all that. So it may have been to my knowledge, no, not before Kip Litton. I didn't know of any cases. I think the next one I got really interested in too was the Mike Rossi one, but I was not the main guy going after, or I wasn't posting a lot until it was already well known that he had cheated. But I think the Mike Rossi one may have made people the most mad because Mike Rossi was really upset that people were accusing him of cheating, and he was taunting people. Whereas Kip Litton kind of stayed silent. Kip Litton was kind of this, in my view, kind of just mental stuff going on maybe, and just kind of dodging the, kind of denying it to his accusers. I think mostly Scott Hubbard was kind of contacting him, and he's denying it, and then I think somebody maybe took a year for Mark Singer at the New Yorker to get involved after. I'd put it all. The main reason I started the blog, kiplitton.blogspot.com, was that the threads on Kip Litton from myself and all of the other Let's Run trolls kept getting deleted. I think Kip was either complaining or threatening to sue or something, or maybe wrote the Brojos, Robert Johnson, Weldon Johnson, were just taking it down, and until I think finally we got this email. A couple of us. I was in contact at the time with another runner, Gary Kruger, who's a guy who was trying to go sub-3 in all 50 states, just like Kip, but he was doing it legitimately and honorably, and I kind of became friends with him through the process, and he was posting on that thread, I think, his GK, and he had run a couple of those races where Kip was disqualified, and he had never seen Kip. Like basically, like Kip had finished in front of him, and he had never seen him, and so yeah, I think I don't, not to my knowledge. I mean, there might have been some things, and then it was really shocking. I think a year or two ago to hear about Jane Seo, who was the Harvard student. Who did that. It was a really good job to you for kind of getting around that, because. But I think in this day and age, it's just people take notice. People are, especially with qualifying for Boston and just the prestige in finishing a marathon. I think we didn't know how big of an issue cheating in road races could be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the serial cheaters, I think they've kind of gotten weeded out and busted, now over the last few years, because there was the Donnellys that I've written a bunch about in Arizona, where they had copied bibs and cheated for Boston for a number of years. George Taylor was another one, very similar to Kip, I think, but not but again, just doing it to get into Boston year after year after year, and and finding where he was cutting the course there to qualify and cutting the course at Boston, and so right now it's the serial cheaters again. I think they're either kind of from the site or whatever. It's kind of once you catch them, it's no fun anymore, because then they stop doing it, and you have less to go after. But and I know my running coach who run a 2:24 marathon, a very fast runner in his day, who been a top 10 American at Boston Marathon 20 years ago, about 15, I want to say 2003, so about 50 years ago, Kevin Beck. And he told me that
back then, right after around 4 hours in the marathon, I think a lot of times there weren't as many marathoners back then running kind of in those time ranges, and maybe so cheating was more on the elite level looked at, like with the case of Rosie Ruiz, but now with wanting to qualify for Boston and get your times, get a Boston qualifier, it really has become a thing. And I didn't know that with CIM and some of the fast races, if there's posts on Craigslist for bib mules, wasn't there some cases with CIM where people would go and post looking for a bib mule, and they would I think you reported it, Derek, to CIM, and they disqualified him. I think I might have seen it on the blog, but
yeah. Actually, I work directly. We've had Eli on, who's the race director at CIM. So yeah, we had there were a couple. The bib mule one, he actually they found it and they kind of came to me and say, "How do you want to handle this?" And that was a guy who's, "Hey, I want to sell my bib, and then I'll give you or I will actually pay you to take my bib if you can run me a Boston time." So they found out who they found out who that seller was and banned him from the race for either permanently or for a number of years.
That had to have happened a lot in the past too. We just didn't know about it.
I bet if I go back to the year before I really went there, I'd probably find a whole bunch of people who cheated. So, when I went last year, I didn't find it wasn't as many very obvious, cheaters that I found that ran Boston, because again, I think we're catching them up front or stopping it. And then all the ones who had done it for years on end, who were super obvious but nobody was looking, now since we've looked, they've been banned or stopped. So
yeah, I'm told from runners like 15 and 20 years ago that really after 4 hours they were kind of taking the timing equipment down. I mean, the marathon was kind of a thing where, and women maybe had just gotten into it. I think it's only more recently women. I shouldn't say that. It was still I don't want to get it wrong here, but it might have been more like 70s or 80s, like when women were really being competitive.
Right.
Competitive. Not that they, of course, they couldn't do it, but just that they really want to step up to the plate and show what they're capable of and have that opportunity, have that platform. And I think I want to say the 80s and 90s, you didn't see many times slower than 4 hours, and now I think the 4 hours is the median time, middle time. Is that right?
I think it's more
the average. Maybe 4 hours 20 minutes. So I think runs turned into more of, and this isn't to be elitist or anything, but so I hope it doesn't come across that way. But into, some people feel that sometimes races turn more into parades, where people want to have fun and it becomes less of a competition and more of a you're trying to finish a marathon and that's great. But at the same time, it's the race director's responsibility to make sure the results are right, and they can't turn an eye to and forget about guys who are people who are just gonna treat it like a if you want to treat it for fun as a joke, fine, or change costumes or whatever it is you want to do. But the race directors need to get the results right, because Boston qualifying's on the line, or just having your PR on the line. So that's kind of, I think, the view, and what it's protecting the integrity of the race. So that's what it comes down to, I think, in the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can focus. For me, it's like, okay, I need to draw a line of what I'm going to generally focus on. But right now there's not a whole lot of races, so I get all kinds of crazy tips and involved in other things. I had an email. I hate to throw a tipster under the bus, but I had an email last week about somebody saying, this person, and it's somebody with a significant social media following, and says, hey, she posted on times on Instagram which were inaccurate. She run into the Dopey Challenge, and the times that were posted on the Instagram were like, she posted her marathon time was 1 minute less than it really was. She posted a half marathon maybe 30 seconds less. I mean, it was and the person didn't cheat. She probably looked at the Garmin. It's probably when she hit stop on Garmin or whatever. But I'm getting people reported for falsifying times by a minute for a marathon. I mean, obviously this person wasn't trying to deceive or anything, but so it's absurd. So
rounding down a bit.
What's that? Yeah, so it's
rounding down a bit on there.
Who knows? Maybe if it's Strava, maybe if it stop for character stops, it stops. It'll stop when you stop. If it's on auto pause or something. So but it was
also, to be totally fair, I was in an online discussion about Courtney DeWalter posted that she finished her first 100. She finished in like 30 hours, and I commented I was at that same race, and it took me 37:48.
Yeah, I saw that post. I meant to check it,
but it was really 37:52.
Yeah, exactly. That would be the same kind of thing. That would be very similar to what was reported to me. It's like,
I was actually trying to show that I was longer, that it took me forever. I just got the number wrong.
Yeah, and I'm sure I've misquoted. I've talked about 24-hour races. My first one, I probably said it was, I probably said it was, 65, maybe a 63. I don't remember anymore. So there's a difference. So I try to.
Back to this Kip Litton.
Yes, thank you.
Do we know what his motivation was, or has anybody ever tried to figure that out?
I think from what I remember, I know he's trying to raise. I mean, you probably read the New Yorker article. He's trying to raise money for the cystic fibrosis for his kid, and he had this website, which probably on the Wayback Archive, looking back, we can find worldrecordrun.com, and I think he was just trying to. He was this person who, from what I understand, listening to Mark Singer's. Mark Singer, I think, was on the Boston. Was it WPRG? I used to have a thing to it on my blog, but I think I haven't updated the link. It was WBUR Boston, NPR here and now, and on there, I think Mark Singer said it was really all about Kip Litton's ego to say, hey, I've done. He was this dentist and had his own dental practice. I think he still does, although I think he'd been reprimanded. I saw by the Michigan State Dental Board.
He still does. I think I'm one of his 2 followers on Twitter. Every now and then he posts. Every now and then he posts about brushing your teeth and like, hey, want to come? Hey.
I mean, his market in Michigan. I don't know that they're all that into marathon runnings. I think it's somewhere in the Flint or somewhere. And I think Mark Singer talked about it a little bit in the New Yorker article. And it's kind of like not a great neighborhood and. Where he's taking care of people's teeth there in Michigan, from what I remember, and
I think it was near a GM. Reading the article, I think it was like near like a GM plant. So heck, that may not even be there anymore for the way those are going. But so I think he was catering to like the GM employees and whatnot. There was a note there where he was offering plans, when they were laid off or on shutdown, whatever, to help them when they lost their insurance. So so I think he does a lot of, or did a lot to with
and I think what Mark Singer found and what we had found is that he was this runner who wasn't completely a fake. I mean, he was still a pretty decent runner. Maybe probably could have qualified for Boston legitimately. I mean, he was pretty close. I think he could run like maybe a 3:20. I want to say legitimately.
Yes,
but he was trying to run 2:40 or 2:50. And when you're traveling to races like in Albuquerque or in Montana, it's like you can't run like 240 or 250 there at altitude, and as a Masters, being his age, and just his other times didn't line up. But I think legitimately he was probably a much better runner than Mike Rossi. Mike Rossi maybe could run a 20-something minute, maybe 25-minute 5K, but he's not maintaining that pace to run a 3:11 marathon. So Kip Litton with all the. And then I think what was just so amazing was like on the Let's Run, as you guys know, like Kip Litton with some of the outfit changes. I think it just got so crazy to look up this guy's race photos and see a 17-minute 5K, which typically is a very good varsity cross-country high school time. Like you figure for boys, a 17-minute 5K. And to see Kip Litton look up his time in this and see that he did 17 minutes and he was walking in the photos. It was just. I think it was just things like that just really made it very entertaining for myself and for the other trolls on Let's Run.
Yeah. So what we have, what he would typically do, he would start, and I found this in some other runners too. He would start very far back past the gun. So usually he'd be one of the. I don't know if the very last starters or
way back, like much further than you'd ever want to start if you're trying to be is running the times he's supposedly running.
So
you would not want to start, like if you're a 3-hour marathoner or sub 3, you probably want to maybe start at most like a minute behind the gun time, and he'd be like 5 minutes behind the gun
you
time,
don't want
right?
to start behind the walkers and everything else
Yeah.
and all that. So he would start there. So
Yeah.
typically this, I think the thought process to that was, okay, he's trying to, he wants to register his time without being seen. So, or kind of, maybe be off to the side, look like a spectator. So maybe not, be in full, not look like a runner. So that's kind of what I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's kind of what
that's what
the thought was,
even
just trying to sneak past the
there was
trigger the
a
mat.
couple races, I think a marathon where you could see him, or even I think in my blog we caught him a few times where you could see where he was disguised kind of in this long sleeve cloak, bib not showing, just long sleeve kind of gear you put on if you're standing at the marathon start line to prevent yourself from getting chilled before you're going to strip it off and show your bib. But as you know, you should show your bib at all times during a race, and you don't want to start a race and be covering up. That's just fishy. So, but that's how he'd start the race, and that's how you'd see him in a YouTube video of the start, or in some of the photographs. So,
yeah, and I think very rare. I think early on when nobody was looking, I think he'd had some missed splits, but later on it seemed like he kind of had this down. Where I don't think he'd had some odd splits, like you said, the big negative splits that you wouldn't expect, like at Boston. But he wasn't missing splits, and again, the one that confounds me is the Boston Marathon that he did under, what 250 or 248 or whatever, the under 3 hour Boston, where it's like, and we have the outfit change there and everything else, but there's a lot of timing mats in Boston and he didn't miss any.
Yeah, he didn't miss any, and it's a very, I think a very hard course to cheat at because it's point to point. I've never run it, but from what I understand, it starts all the way out in that Hopkinton area. Where's it? And just the way it goes, and having to hit a Heartbreak Hill, Wellesley, and just these different areas. Those Jim Rhodes photos, which kind of those photos, just with Boston and that performance where I think he ran 250 something, and it's like, how did he did it? And that was kind of the climax of Mark Singer's story. Came out in New Yorker in 2012, and kind of going through that, it's like we Let's Run posters, myself and Gary Kruger and my coach and some of these other Let's Run trolls kind of doing this forensic investigation, which Mark Singer wrote about and everything, is go through it and just you find different sets of photos like race photographers. And one of those, I guess, was the Jim Rhodes photos, right? And the others was some of the official race photographer photos, and just trying to connect the dots. And I guess there was that one Jim Rhodes photo where he was along the side of the course, but with his bib covered, and just kind of happened to be caught in the view of the photographer, who wasn't really, probably thought he wasn't even part of the racers, just kind of on the side there. And but
and he had a different he had a different hat on than he did at the finish, and it was I think it was the same hat he had on for the 5K, the Boston 5K, whatever. So it was definitely him. So, but okay, where did he changed?
Yeah,
why would you change hats, and how would you change hats?
We just didn't know how he did it, and from what I remember, that was one where there might have been some odd pace changes, like to 650 to 620 pace, but nothing too crazy like the smoking gun ones that going to 4 minute miles or
he was very good. Yeah. He was very good at it. And so with Kip, everyone kind of looks at him as like mysterious and almost like a folk hero or kind of thing. Where Mike Rossi, Mike Rossi's an asshole, but hey, Kip Litton, hey, how do you do it? He's a great guy.
He's good.
But it's like more because
stealth outfit changes, and but Mike Rossi was more like I'm gonna come beat the crap out of you. If of course I ran it, I'm going to come beat the crap out of you. But Kip Litton was more just silence and.
Yeah, well, if you listen to, I still get pounded on Mike Rossi on Twitter and whatnot. I'm like, the whole reason, and really, it was similar. You mentioned, why you started the blog because of Let's Run, deleting threads. Well, that's kind of exactly the thing that led to my blog, and then my blog kind of grew from there. Where during that Mike Rossi thread, I wrote an article. I made a post about a woman because I'm like, hey, let me see if I can find somebody else. I found this woman, made a post, and they deleted it. Like, well, let me just throw this up on on the blog just to keep the information. So that's kind of the same thing that led to the blog.
Yeah, people accuse, and I guess on Let's Run, a post go up, and you didn't know if they're going to stay up, and nothing we could get. We'd find stuff about this guy Kip Litton, and nothing we could get could stay up. So that's kind of why I put everything there, and started putting even copies of the Let's Run pages there, and then finally, I think Rojo or Robert Johnson, the co-founder of letsrun.com, had responded to one of the trolls that were involved in this with me, and kind of said, we're going to allow one thread, but we don't want multiple threads on this. And that one thread got to be one of the longest in Let's Run history. But I think later it was beaten by a lot by the Mike Rossi thread, from what I understand. That was
Rossi, really I don't think Robbie Young quite got that long, but yeah.
But that was by far the longest, I think. But as a Kip Litton at the time, that one was
yeah. I mean, the one thing I'll give what Let's Run can do when when people really do focus on it is kind of the crowdsourcing, crowdsourcing, looking at the photos, kind of thing, and like they do with Mike Rossi and with Kip, and it's beyond what I can do. But then at the worst, it just becomes a complete, where I think Mike Rossi went off the rails after all the information was out there. Then it just kind of went crazy.
And Let's Run, and your Facebook group are great because they tend to have the runners who understand marathon running and understand the splits and know what's likely and what's likely not can't believe their eyes type stuff, and so that's great. Just to have a community where you can say, hey, this guy. I mean, I don't know. I think anonymous tips to you. That's one avenue. If someone's not sure, they don't want to blurt the name out or anything, but they just want to kind of protect the innocent before they're sure that the person is. Worthy of
I'd say 50%. I'd say 50% of the time it's either non-conclusive or no, this person didn't cheat. And usually, it's a lot of times is like, hey, this person came up in my photos. And a lot of times, bibs, certain angles, they look like a different number and they're just mistagged. He does, hey, so this person stole my bib. This person copied it. Oh no, check this number. This is them. Okay. And so I get a lot of that. So going back to bring it back to Kip. So we have again, we know. I mean, we're certain the guy cut courses. The runners reported not seeing him. He would have passed them. They didn't notice him. Early on, he was missing splits. Later on, he seemed to get better. What's your thoughts on how he got from point to point? And he knew where all the timing mats are, which probably isn't that hard. It could be just emailing a race director, not and say, oh yeah, the timing mats are here, which that happens. So
from what I remember, the crazy thing was the shoe changes, the outfit changes. It didn't make any sense. How we still won't probably never know exactly what happened in Boston. Some of the other races, like I think the South Dakota Trail Marathon he did, where he was waiting around at the start for everyone, including the walkers, to cross the starting line, and then probably crossing the starting line, but the photos caught him there, and he was disqualified there. The Deadwood Nicholson Trail Marathon in South Dakota, that was one of the ones. I kind of tried to put together a timeline on my blog from way back then, but I think he and then also just making up races. I mean, that was the big thing. That was the difference, I guess, with Kip Litton. From now, just looking back at it now, I know it's been 9 years, is making up races. He had made up 3, and then I think responded to other race directors from races around the country and saying, I think he responded to Rich Rodriguez, who happens to be a coach at the University of Michigan in football or something. And
Rich Rodriguez was the name of the race director on there. And
from what I understand, it turns out that guy's a famous coach at football, Michigan.
Yeah, which
football.
is I don't think he was at Michigan though when. Maybe he was at Michigan at that time. Yeah. I'm trying to think if you got the connection because he's in Michigan. But, yeah, so basically what happened, the one runner who was suspicious of him, and this is all in the New Yorker article, contacted after talking to other race directors and, hey, we disqualified him as suspicious. He emailed this Rich Rodriguez, and Rich said, no, everything's legit. and then it turns out Rich Rodriguez is Kip Litton. I think
it's Kip Litton. That was the freaking craziest thing.
And I think they found that out because it was like a small web hosting service. It was like the same as his dental practice, as was the West Wyoming Marathon. I mean, it was great work by the sleuths.
Yeah, the guy that's where the Let's Run community really came together there, because somebody posted look up the IP address, the who is info, the hosting.
Yep.
And they found it was the same hosting as his dental website business. That was kind of the holy crap. This is really crazy. Like, this guy's making up races,
he made up the races. He had Marathon. It was on Marathon Guide. There were reviews. He made up finishers.
No, I
think they were fictitious names. I think they were like real runners, because I think I know somebody who said he reached out and contacted a couple and like, no, I never ran that race, kind of thing.
Like Sarah Johnson, or just very very like,
or it may have been actual runners they pulled from race or whatever. I mean, there's other ones I know. I ran marathons with Parvena, where the race for the uses at the Guinness records, and she'd make up fictitious names. I think they haven't found kind of a site where, hey, all these names are listed on this random site, kind of thing, and people who
they were very sort of amateur looking race websites, but maybe not for back then, but they look kind of amateurish designs, and all hosted on the same website, no real photos. And then I guess the real thing was when, I can't remember if it was Scott Hubbard or Mark Singer, he emailed Kip, and Kip kind of just about West Wyoming, and he kind of said, yeah, I held it, but nobody showed up. So it was really crazy.
Yeah, they said it was like a family thing, and exactly. But it was such.
He went on a family trip and decided he was going to hold it or something,
and create a marathon guide and write fake reviews and
make up results. And
that seems legit.
Yeah. And then I think he made up a name on marathonguide.com. You just remember that, like Gary Sanchez or GS, or I think was one of the names. He made up that name to review it. And it's just really, really nuts. I mean, West Wyoming, from what I understand, reading the New Yorker article too, kind of middle of nowhere. Wyoming just not a whole lot of population parts of there, so it was definitely kind of strange. It's like not a good place to make up a marathon.
Yeah, it's probably wanted to make it up because he probably didn't want to actually go there. He probably didn't want to actually go to Wyoming. So,
has anybody gone and tried to get an interview of him?
The guy New Yorker did. I've considered it. But
they went to the in the New York article. The Mark Singer says he went there, showed up there, and I think Kip or the secretary of his dental practice. Can't remember which had kind of threatened to call the police when Mark Singer went to go talk to him. I think finally though they met at a Wendy's restaurant, and I think down the street from Kip's dental practice. And I from what I understand, Kip was still in denial about it, and the Lady Gaga Poker Face song was playing, and that's what Mark Singer describes in the New York article during the questioning, and that's kind of how we left it from there. But
that's the only interview that they really got of him.
Yeah, I think early on there was some questioning from the Michigan race director who knew Kip, because Kip, being from Michigan, knew of his cheating. That was Scott Hubbard. Scott Hubbard was a very fast runner in his day, from what I understand, and he, I want to say in the don't quote me on this, but I want to say he may have run like a 4:10 mile or somewhere in the 4:10 to 4:19. He was very good, very amazing runner and race director for races in Michigan. And so he knew of Kip and knew of his cheating. And then I think when he had gotten in contact with Kyle Strode kind of early on, I think before I got involved, before it was kind of going on Let's Run, I think that some of Kip's cheating was known, but it was just known locally at the races he was cheating at. It wasn't until a little later that race directors were kind of connecting the dots there. But I think at around that time, Scott Hubbard had kind of grilled Kip a little bit, and Kip may have known people were really onto him. It's kind of like I'm not going to talk and tell you much once you've been grilling me, but. It was just really crazy. I mean, it said in the New York article, like he's spending all this money to travel around the country and not run, not race, and be disqualified. And and also kind of sad because you don't know what's going through this guy's head.
Yeah, so. It was real crazy. And I first heard, I got involved, or I heard about, I wasn't involved at all really I don't think I ever even, I may have posted in the Kip Litton thread at some point, but I was involved kind of after the fact when everyone was like waiting for him to, okay, is he going to actually run Boston? I think there was another race where he said he was going to, where he registered or somebody registered under his name and people were going to plan on following him, but it's kind of once it gets out there in public, then he just completely he stopped running. He registered for Boston I think twice, and didn't. His bib, his bib got picked. Someone picked up his bib. I think they haven't. But he didn't.
Yeah, because Mark Singer, I was talking to Mark Singer at the time because I think he was interviewing myself and probably the other players involved that. Can't quote me on that, I guess, because I don't know, but like I think Scott Hubbard and Kyle Strode, some of the other people involved. Yeah. And I think Mark Singer he flew to Boston and was there the day to see Kip run, but kind of knowing he probably wouldn't show up, and because by the time the online community Let's Run pressure was after him, and I had this blog running and everything, I think he wasn't showing up and racing anymore. I think one of his last races that may have been, I'm looking at my timeline here, but it might have been, I want to say, an indoor. I think he was supposed to run an indoor in Michigan or something, like a marathon that's on an indoor track where you go around a ton of times. But yeah, I'm kind of looking at the timeline.
Yeah,
here,
I remember that too. Or he was registered for that, but it could have been anybody registering under his name. I think Cowtown was maybe the last one he was supposed to.
Yeah, in Texas. I think that. Yeah,
he said there was an injury. I'm looking right at the New Yorker.
Yeah, he was in a car accident or something. I think that's what he said to.
Yeah.
He had this friend named Dan Baxley, who I found out was real, and who had unfortunately passed away last couple of years, who went on Let's Run and defended him. And I had kind of talked to private at the time. I was kind of, even after the New Yorker article, I was kind of private messaging Dan Baxley, like, how could you not think he cheated? Like, look at all this. And I think Dan Baxley just didn't understand the sport. And I kind of was thinking, is this guy Kip, or what's going on here? Because it just didn't seem like anyone who understands the sport could kind of get behind this guy. But
I guess same thing with the Rob Young, and it could all be always raising for charity. It's fine. I just wrote about guy who was getting car rides going across New Zealand. Again, so he's raising money. It's so people look the other way.
And I could see, like with Jane Seo, who's a student at Harvard, it's like no one would have ever expected someone like that, like someone with good moral standing, just good standing in the community, being known as smart and everything, could ever do such a thing.
And really, and not so much.
People are likely to have
and not so much the cheating with her. It was that she thought she can get away with riding her bike after the race to get a GPS track.
To cover up with the Strava, get the Strava results.
Yeah, which was so odd because it's going to have a different start and end time. It's going to have your pace isn't going to match up exactly, and none of it did. So that was So I think it was just in a panic. I think it was just a panic, like, oh crap, what I do? And people are asking me why it's a manual entry, and so it was.
I've noticed these days too, when you go to run a marathon. I'm not sure if this was the case in the past, but they check your ID to pick up your bib, and they I know I just did Chevron Houston Marathon. They required us to have, if we wanted to go pick it up for someone else, we needed a signed paper So if I wanted to pick it up for Kip Litton, say if he were running it. If he came back from the dead or something, he's been gone for, no offense, but sorry, he's been gone for like 8 years, but from the sport. But he came and ran a marathon. He wanted to have me go pick up his bib. He'd have to sign a paper and have me have it in hand and give it to them. So I'm wondering if the race directors, or just in general, all marathons, are being a lot more careful to not hand out bibs to the wrong people.
Yeah, I think most of them are. I did Flying Pig. I picked up a bib for somebody who was coming in from out of town, and she had to send me her photocopy of her driver's license for me to pick up the bib.
So that's really good then, because then hopefully it's a lot harder to do the bib mule thing. Like you can't go on.
You need to. You need to be local to the person. So you would typically need to. Again, I could say, okay, I'm going to have this. Here's my bib mule. I'm going to have them pick up my bib for me. That's entirely possible. So you can still, whatever you do after you pick up your bib between, a couple of days before the race and the day of the race, you can always get, you can always get the bib. I'm posting an article either tomorrow or Thursday about, and it's just crazy. This girl's been copying probably have maybe 10 races and all on Instagram of her running races where she had copied bibs. And most of the time, she's standing next to her friend with the same bib number. So she's copying a friend's bibs, knowing it with a friend. And then another one, there's a discussion where they're talking about, we need to copy a bib to do this race, and and talk about how they do it. Well, yeah, someone will post it on social media. Just look for the hashtag. They always do, and just openly discussions on the Instagram thread. I'm like, yeah. I mean, they've got a long way with it for this long until tomorrow, I guess, or the next couple of days. But it was just so absurd. I mean, I figured she probably stole thousands of dollars worth of race entries. So there's always the way getting the counterfeit bibs and the and then just.
The other interesting thing is now to qualify for Boston. I mean, you can use downhill marathons to qualify for Boston, but I know for like really fast runners who want to qualify for the Olympic trials, the Olympic trial marks, you can't. Like there's a limit.
I think the limit is Eli, the CIM race director, was telling us. Now again, I think the Olympic. Yeah, I mean CIM's downhill, and it's an Olympic qualifier. It's the national championship.
Yeah, CIM's
like right at the limit in Boston. Maybe the limit's set at Boston, so Boston could be an Olympic qualifier.
Yeah, I'm not fast enough to consider that, so it doesn't apply to me. But I know, like, for people for going for the men's, which is 218, and women's 245, or I think it's 218, 219, something like that for men, and for going for that, you can't choose like. A super downhill marathon like Steamboat. What are some? George
the Revel,
one in Colorado,
Rockies, St. George Tunnel in Washington
St. George.
State.
Yeah, some of these ones that kind of Steamtown, I think it's called in Pennsylvania. There are a couple of them that have these huge downhills and really good opportunities. Your quad to get a BQ if your quads can handle it. And but I thought that was interesting. So anyway, back to Kip. Just really.
Yeah,
really crazy. The general pattern, just waiting around really, really long times in start, having these outfit changes, walking during 17-minute or 18-minute 5Ks, just crazy. That's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, there's many races like if Kip wasn't known, and just like looking at his results. I mean, his Boston result never. Probably wouldn't have gone to the top of the radar. I'm not knowing his splits or how crazy they were. I mean, it had to be because I will look between two splits and say, okay, what did the field do on average versus their total time? So I'll take this split was typically 15% of a runner's total time. In this case, it was only 5% of a runner's total time. Okay, hey, that's real crazy for that specific split. So I sometimes go to that detail. So that may have put him to the top, but just. Eyeballing it, it's something you.
Or sometimes the races where the runner, and I think this was the case with St. Louis Marathon with Kip, where the runner will hit the half one because they know that there's a split mark at the half. But if there's one at mile 6 and mile 20, they won't hit those, and then their splits will be really good. But it's like, why did they miss those splits at mile 6 and mile 20? The splits will be really even still, so it looks like they could have run the race.
If a race throws up, again I'm a big fan of those where the unpublished splits. As long as races use them, where runners don't know that there's a timing mat. That's a good telltale sign.
That was really a shame with the Mike Rossi one with the Lehigh Valley? The Lehigh Valley Via Valley. They didn't that they just didn't have any, and it's just unbelievable that they stand by that. I go back and forth. I'm not as big. I think everyone knows Mike cheated. I think he paid the price. He wasn't disqualified, and he ran Boston. But into this point, he's known as a cheater, so I'm not as adamant. It's still pushing for the DQ. Now I don't know what it does. I would applaud it if they did, but it doesn't seem like they're going to. So I'm not sure what else. I mean, if you cheat in a marathon and you hire a bib mule, you might not get caught. If you're not a boaster or bragger, you might not get caught if no one bothers to look at your race photos that are on there for sale. The race photographer's trying to sell. It's like who cares? You're not a pro runner. You're not sub elite, or you're not kind of in that BQ category. But if you get to that BQ category, probably somebody's gonna have a look, and if it doesn't look anything like you, if your friends look on your race photos and it doesn't look anything like you, then there's that. So and then they go contact you.
That's exactly what it is. Somebody brags like,
So,
"Hey, I ran Boston."
yeah.
Well, how'd you get into Boston? And then you're not fast enough.
Yeah,
I run with you.
I mean, I think the other problem is that a lot of these people that are cheating are, the type is someone who brags on social media. So they're, like by definition, they're finding a way to accomplish something that they can't do so that they can brag to all their friends about it and get more attention.
Right. What's the point to cheat to get into Boston if you don't tell anybody about it? I mean,
Right.
that's a very good point.
It's like, why would you go to Boston and not buy the jacket? You got to get the jacket, right? Everybody wears the jacket.
Exactly. So that's a very good point. So I think it all is kind of part and parcel.
And I think people undertake the goal, and maybe they don't realize, especially if they don't have a running background, they don't realize how difficult it is. I mean, if you don't have a background to go from just picking up the sport, maybe starting with a couch to 5K plan or something a little more, but just and maybe they're able to run a 20-minute 5K, but then they can't. But then they realize, oh shoot, I got to run 3:11 or 3:10 like Mike Rossi did and supposedly did, and they're trying to do that, and then they realize how hard it is, and then they have to. I forget the three. I used to know the three pillars of fraud, the things that motivate people to commit fraud, but just kind of like rationalization and to be able to rationalize that, like how does it go from, oh shoot, I've been trying to qualify for Boston for 6 months to a year, this is going to be starting from scratch, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought, I might have to cheat to do it. And I guess for some, sadly it comes to that. And Kip Litton's case, I know it's a sub 3 hour, his was sub 3 hour marathon, just trying to do that in all 50 states, trying to be this really heroic figure. And I think it just got to be too good to be true, because he was running marathons pretty close together on the calendar too. So a lot of times people need a good couple months even to recover from a marathon. I mean, some people can race a marathon and run pretty well, maybe as frequently as every month, but even that, like I know for a lot of runners, right, they might need a couple weeks of easy running after you raced a marathon, and you might not do another one for a few months.
There's very few runners that can run a 3 hour marathon every week or however often every couple of weeks.
Yeah, so like that's another red flag, I guess, initially on Kip Litton. Here's a guy who was not only trying to run sub 3 hours in all 50 states, but he was showing up and getting in the results of races really frequently, like to the point where you're like, is this guy human? Because I think he was already up there a little in age.
Yeah,
I want to say in the masters category, and usually
he was over 40. We know that because he was
over
masters,
40, and
he was placing. That's how he got initially suspicious, because he came second in the masters category in a race, and the third place finisher and first place finisher were like, wait, who is this guy? He's not local. And then they started looking into him. So I know he was over 40 in the first ones.
Yeah, that's right. Like that's what happened in Montana, and that one where it's 247 or something, and that altitude or slight altitude, and with a very good against the local Kyle Strode, who I think was the first. I think he's a college professor up there in Montana, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling, from what I understand. So, yeah.
All right. I think we pretty much covered Kip in detail, and I think I'm going to do a kind of companion article to this just to kind of summarize it and point people to that New Yorker piece and to the blog. And I appreciate you keeping that up. I guess it's Blogspot's up. It's probably not costing you anything to keep that thing up. So.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just leaving up there for the time being. Haven't been updated in about 5 years, but
it's still there.
As well. Yeah.
Maybe it's time for us to go try and chase him down again too.
Occasionally I message him like don't want to stalk his dental practice. I don't know, but I'd consider that. I have a similar project that I can't talk about yet.
I saw he'd been reprimanded by the dental board for, I think, offering about his dental practice. Don't quote me on this, but some kind of orthodontic.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Not allowed to do if you're a licensed dentist. I think that was the issue.
Or he wasn't licensed. When he's putting braces on kids, he wasn't allowed to. I'm not sure.
I think in order to provide a certain kind of product or service related to orthodontics, you have to be.
There's so many.
Licensed, wasn't or something. So it's just like. Yeah, and Mark Singer also said that from an ethics standpoint, I think he said he was a member of some ethics board that he in fact was not. That's in the New Yorker article. So, but
yeah, I've come across a number of dentists. Pafford is a serial course cutter who that I've written about in Arizona. There's a bunch in Arizona. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but yeah, he's a dentist. I've written about other doctors and dentists. I don't think there's. Maybe there's some kind of link there. I'm not sure, but
but maybe he's a changed man now. Maybe he's a completely different person. He might have been going through a rough period. Wasn't Mike Rossi kind of going through a period with alcohol? From what I understand, he got in some fights, got arrested for
after the fact. And again,
maybe
honest,
when they're
that's kind of a reason why it's like, okay, do I really want to dredge all this up publicly again by posting an article by saying VIA needs to disqualify the guy when I saw what happened, what the results were after the first round of scrutiny. If he...
Oh, you're saying with these guys coming after you with nasty notes, or
just with people will say, just trying to put, again, just people trying to put pressure on me to to write about Mike Rossi some more, and to write about and to push the VIA to disqualify him at this point. And again, it's one of my thoughts on that is, okay, hey, here's what's happened. Again, it's Mike's responsible, I think, for his actions. But here's what happened when he had when he was scrutinized before.
I was really disappointed that where Mike Rossi ran Lehigh Via, that some of the runners who were trying to get a BQ there, from what I understand, were blocked by a train that was crossing the tracks there.
Yeah,
it's like, why the hell would that happen during a race? That's totally not right.
There's a couple races that happens where it's just not scheduled, and there's a delay in that, and the race, the trains don't care. So yeah, that did happen.
So some races, race directors don't take it serious. I mean, they don't take it seriously. Not only are they not disqualifying the cheaters where they're clear that someone cheated, but they treat it too much. This is my opinion. They treat it too much like it's a parade, and they're like some of the. I mean, there's people running races and they're doing it for fun, and that's fine. Where you don't really care about a time, you're in a race where you're being kind, but you don't care, and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun. I do that sometimes, but you owe it to runners and to the competitors in the race to have the correct results. And you think if you're charging money and you're paying for it, you should get what you pay for the race.
You definitely need to cater to both. I mean, you can still be a fun race because Disney can still
be a fun
Disney
race.
could still cater to the people who want to stop and get pictures with all the characters, and
you can still have rock and roll bands on the side. You can still have rock and roll bands on the side, but you should have the mile markers placed in the right spot.
Yeah,
you shouldn't have trains blocking it. You should have correct splits. You should hold people accountable when they're not, like, when they're missing splits. And
yeah, and the thing is, like with like Disney, it's like, if they just disqualify those people won't care. They really the 5 hour marathoners who cut at mile 20 so they can get more pictures with Snow White, they probably will never go back in and check their online results because they're not going to use them for anything. They're not using them for qualifying times or anything. They probably don't care if they're in the results.
Yeah, and some of those races are not races you'd pick if you'd want to get a BQ because they're really hot. It's difficult to run a fast marathon or BQ marathon, try to get close to a PR if it's like 80 degrees or something humid. So yeah, maybe these I don't know if there's a link too of like people who are trying to get in Boston Marathon. They try to pick like fast courses like CIM or Houston or Grandma's and mass courses or St. George where there's good downhill, just races where they can run well, and not a race like Disney where I would think,
No, you don't get it. You don't get it. It's a much less percentage of Boston qualifiers at Disney than you would have at one of those other races.
Yeah, like your typical
not because it's difficult, just again because of the people
10
who
minutes slower there.
Yeah,
you're like a 250 marathoner might be like 10 minutes slower there just because it's typically very hot there most of the time. So
yeah, or it's just again, or the crowd. I mean, you're going to get a slower. You'll get less Boston qualifiers at a rock and roll race just because people aren't trying to. Some people are, but again,
some people are.
But you get a lot of people who just are. They could be good runners who are just going to take their time and do it as a party and do it as fun. And that's why you get. I mean, you get some of that in Boston too. A lot of time, Boston's the victory lap. People just want to run Boston. Hey, I got into Boston. I'm just going to enjoy it. And so you have people who are just slower because not accounting for the last few years of weather where it was either super hot or torrential rains.
Not Mike Rossi slower where you go from 3:11 to maybe 4 hours. That's kind of disappointing. But maybe 10 minutes to 20 minutes slower where you're like, hey, Heartbreaks Hill's hard. maybe I got an injury. I'm not quite in shape, but I want to say I did it. I made it to the starting.
And there's plenty of runners who are an hour slower, legitimately. Because that's how I do my review. I look for who's.
I see.
I look for the biggest differential. And so I start looking there, but I came across. Let's see. Wait, this woman. She has baby on board on there. Okay, she's pregnant while she's walking this. That's why she's an hour and a half slower. This guy. Let's see. This guy, he ran the entire marathon backwards. Okay, that's why he's slower. So I come across.
It reminds me of it's also true. I think of the Olympic trials. Sometimes you get people who qualify for Olympic trials, and then maybe they like a woman. A baby or really bad injury and they're out of shape, but they made it to the trials and they're going to finish it even if it's 3.5 hours when they ran 2:40 something to qualify, or a guy who ran I want to say Dan Brown, that name rings a bell. I think this was Olympic trials, but I think it was might have been 8 years ago, but I think he ran 2:40 or something, and this is a guy who could run 2:52 qualified for Olympic trials, but it wasn't a good day for him. And just because people get injured and timing of marathon stuff. And these days marathons sell out. I should say half marathons sell out pretty quickly. Marathons usually I find you can kind of wait till later on, but it's tough because you don't know going through a marathon training cycle. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to be healthy or not to make it to the starting line. So that could be, not to get far off topic, but
no, that's okay.
But so much fun talking about this and Kip Litton, so thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, thanks for coming on. And again, I'm going to kind of try to introduce this to a new. There's probably a lot of people who haven't really heard of Kip Litton and don't know about it, so I'll try to share that New Yorker article and get the podcast up and an article of my own. And who knows? Cool. Every time I post on stuff, even old stuff, you get some new information. So maybe something will come out of the woodwork.
I think you should consider making a marathon or running cheat Hall of Fame, and then you put these people in the Hall of Fame on the website. And the only way they get down is if they come on the show and talk to us.
Yeah, there we go. A little bit of blackmail.
Yeah, that's pretty good. You have, I guess it'd be Rosie Rees, Mike Rossi, Kip Litton. I'd probably Jane CEO. There's some others probably. I'm sure. I got to look more at your blog.
The Donnellys, Pafford. I got a bunch. And the entire the Honolulu race director. So I'll put him up on there as a special. Him in Philadelphia, the whole race. But besides that, did a good day. Okay. Well, Rich, thank you very much for coming on. I know Scott's got to go. He has another podcast to record. So
cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Rich.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Scott, we are right on the clock. Do you want to plug your races and your podcast?
Go to 10 Junk Miles on iTunes and listen. We're doing some interesting and fun stuff. I just put up a 4-hour podcast about a guy that kind of lost his mind on the Iditarod Trail, and the Badger Trail races by 10 Junk Miles in Wisconsin in August were about halfway sold out, which is kind of scary and kind of fun at the same time. We have really good timing. I've really gone out. We got, I think we're going to use Bill Tom. Do you know him?
I do not.
Run Race or Race Run is the name of his company.
Okay.
Anyway, he does a lot of timing in the Midwest, so that was one of the things I said. We have to have a map for the marathon and the half marathon and all the turnarounds and stuff. So it will be accurately timed, and it'll be a good time. So come on out. Derek Murphy has not signed up yet, by the way.
I haven't. I think what's the date?
August 3rd and 4th.
August 3rd and 4th. It's going to be hot.
Could be.
Could be. You never know. Well, who knows?
Could snow. Could be hard.
Okay. Well, it was funny. I ran in Sub-Zero to get my mile in. I ran a week ago, Wednesday, whatever. I ran in Sub-Zero in the polar vortex, and I ran in shorts 3 days later. So it's been crazy.
What day are you on the streak?
I was on. It was the 5th now. So so I made the full year. So 36 days. I barely got my mile in today. I had a couple close calls. But I'm like, like polar vortex day. My wife was traveling and my kids were home, so I just had to go out the front door and go around the block a time and a half to get my mile in. But I got it in. And tonight I was
going for the whole year. Is that the goal?
I can't imagine that would stick, but it kind of it gives me a reason, keeps me in the habit. That's my problem. I know in the past where something would happen where I would stop running, and it's easier then it would be 2 days off, 3 days off, and I'd be a week and 2 weeks and it'd be done. So if I kind of keep forcing myself out there, even if it's for a slow mile on days where I should be resting, it kind of keeps me going. So, but yeah.
Well, for me, I'll go out with the dog and I'll be like, oh, all right, I'll do a mile just to get on the board, and I put him on the board when he's streaking too, and then it becomes a 2 mile run, and the next thing you know, I'm out there for like an hour and a half, and it's like, oh wow, that was good.
And I've done it very unstructured. Again, I still plan on doing marathons and my 24-hour race and all this stuff, but I did, that felt good. So okay, I'm gonna do. So I did 8 miles on Saturday, and it was like. And I see my pace getting better. Where it's used to be it's like I'd work to do just 12-minute pace. Now it's like now that's like a super easy pace. I was under 12 minutes tonight where I did some walking. I just want to get my mile in. I'm like looking at my phone, reading the New Yorker article. I'm like, oh wow, I did it in 12 minutes.
Well, we do have a marathon in our race too. So, but it's also 100K, 100 mile. It's perfect. It's a generous cutoff.
Yep, I know. I'm thinking about it. I'm definitely doing. I think I'm doing the Flying Pig in May. I got the Air Force Marathon, which got the free entry for getting black flagged. So I'm definitely doing that. I'm definitely doing North Coast 24 in September, which I think you said you might do. So if it fits in your schedule,
that's possible.
You're looking at. So I'm doing that September, then either New York or possibly CIM in November, December. So. Pretty booked. No backyard. There are some Ohio backyards, but I'm going to forego that. So
smart thinking.
I find those very interesting, fascinating. But I need to get if I can do like 100 miles in a 24-hour race, and I'll revisit that. But that's going to be my goal.
I just want to do a race so that I can beat you, and then I can mock you.
Hey, I beat Harvey Lewis in the North Coast 24. So you got your work cut out for you.
Because it dropped.
Well, hey, it's a 24-hour race, no drops. He got his medal.
Okay.
So he ran for maybe 6 hours. So I beat him by maybe by a few miles. And I was out there every minute of the day. So
that came up in the Order of Ultra group. Like if someone drops, do you consider that you beat them? And I said, everybody was like totally into that, and I said, no, I don't think so. I said if Scott Jurek comes and does the race and he drops out at mile 20. I don't run around saying, "Oh, I beat Scott Jurek in a race."
No, but to that point, it's tough. But like I said, if you're the only finisher, again, there's exceptions. If you're the only finisher in a race because everyone else, the conditions got to everybody, then you won. You won and you beat that. But if somebody, if somebody's running that, with the intent of someone's doing a 24-hour race, but they want to stop at 50 miles because they're doing this training, really, I didn't really beat that person, but I did.
Well, I'm emailing Kip Litton, so I'm going to get on this. I'm going to see if
you need to. Yeah, you're not getting success on that. How was the success with the Patriot Bandit? Did you reach out to him?
Man, that didn't go well at all. That dude hates you.
I know, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Let me just see what he said. He said, I can't read all this. The first thing he said is, I want to punch Derek in the face, and if he mentions my name, I will come and find him.
Okay, that sounds good. When's he coming on?
He's a troll that used my story to promote his own agenda. People run Boston Bandit every year and always have and always will. I don't run for time. I buy my own water. It just goes on and on and on. And then I just said, I'm sorry to bother you. I just, wanted to let you know that, he's got a lot to say, but he didn't want to come on the show. There's pages and pages of,
That doesn't surprise me. So
yeah. I just, to me, it's like, well, then come on the show.
Yeah, and I wanted the guy who openly bandits New York every year, wearing the same T-shirt.
We talked to that one guy. I forget who. I think it was the RD of Miami or someone. And we talked about that. There is a counter argument to all this. This guy could just say, "Listen, I know it's cheating. I know it might be technically wrong, but this is what I do, and I dress up like a patriot, and everybody cheers for me, and I make their day. And if that gets you upset, then that's on you. And if the race director wants to call the police on me, I'm willing to deal with the consequences. But, like, I think what I do is net good. I think people get a lot out of it. And I think you guys are just a bunch of, uptight people who, put way too much importance in this whole marathoning thing.
You could absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I did get a response when I kind of did call it, hey, if you've banded races, you want to do the way I did get a response from somebody who said they banded races. Don't take the aid. That I think they'll come on. So just again, as a random person, no one I've written about, but so we may have somebody to to do the counter argument, but just not one of the big fish.
About taking the aid? Are you telling me that they went out and bought this water? I mean, it's probably like sponsored by Aquafina, or because one cup of water going to kill these people?
Yeah, and again, that's the thing. Do you take the metal? Do you take the aid? Do you take all that stuff? So yeah, so that gets people. Well, again, I think I said one of the biggest articles I wrote, which one I kind of regretted, was the guy who took a second medal from Boston for his girlfriend because of the sacrifices she made during his training. I posted that. People went ballistic. I posted that. It's just
there was a pylon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one was that was one where and it was even like I did two. I think I did. The title of the article was not cool or not a big deal, and there were two instances of two things that I posted on that. The first one was there was a group of maybe eight female runners who did kind of the Red Rover chain across the finish line. And you see a runner to the side who was kind of trying to dodge them, and it was so it was like, hey, this is not hey, is this not a big deal, or is this really or not? And then the second thing I did was taking that second medal. But man, people piled on the guy who took the second medal.
I totally remember that.
I remember I I blocked out his Instagram account and name, and I guess people probably searched the hashtag. I may have even blocked that out, but there was a picture. There's like a tree picture in the background that had his last name. And I didn't catch that in the initial, and then it got reposted by probably Canadian Running because they repost everything I do with the first picture and name, and so then people were able to figure out who this guy was and blah blah blah, which again wasn't my intent to out this guy. It was just like, hey, here's an example. So
my reaction was, yeah, probably not cool. That guy probably just doesn't get it. Like he's not an accomplished runner that has got lots of medals or something. But then the second part of it was, but it's not the end of the world, guys. Yeah,
I did feel for how bad that guy.
It was like he raped a nun or something. I mean, the people were so angry at him.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I think that may have been since I had. If I look at my site traffic stats that day, and again, it was right after Boston, so I get a spike anyhow. But that may have been the single busiest day of my website. Was that even other than the Jane CEO? But I was on a different platform then, so I can't really go back and look. But that was probably the second busiest day of my website when it's posted about the guy who took a second medal from Boston. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to keep chasing Kip Litton.
Yeah, me too. I do the occasional email to him. I email Rob Young occasionally. Eventually, someone will want to talk. So,
I mean, I guess it's a double-edged sword for him because I bet deep down inside it would be really great to just clear the air and put this behind him.
I think of him. Okay, man, no one else I do it. You're a genius. Really, I mean, I would just be more. Probably wouldn't be. Hey, you're an ass. It's like, man, how'd you do it? What can we learn from how you were able to, kind of do it, and how did you get away with it? I mean, he could write a book, and it would be a very good selling book in the running community on how he did. But
also for him, if he does this, then it brings it back up again.
Oh yeah, which I think is probably it's not what he wants. So that's why I think it'll be unlikely. Same. Yeah, but unless it's to the point where it's like, man, I just really gotta, where people want to brag about their crimes, jailhouse conviction type thing. People just want to talk about, because hell, I mean, he got away with it in the way. However, how you can cut the course at Boston and not miss a timing mat is, I mean, they're about every 5K. I mean, and to be able to time that out logistically and do that and have somewhat believable splits.
Sure.
While changing, and again, I don't understand the point of changing shoes and completely changing appearance. I understand if he's covered up and has a second, change. But yeah, there's just so much. Okay, why did you? Yeah, but hey, why did you change your shoes? Why did you? What were you doing? What exactly were you doing starting in the back of the pack? Which I think we know he was just trying to, blend in with the crowd and cross the mat. But he probably could have done that.
But I think all these people could give an interview and they could come off sympathetic and it would be fascinating. And I think they just have to. admit what they did and not, just, not double down on it and, just be somewhat contrite, I mean, I've done a lot of bad stuff in my life.
Let's talk about that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have. I mean, for sure, I've lied, I've cheated, I've stole, I've, broken the hearts of, people that really cared about me in the world. I've done every bad thing I could ever think of. And, and then I grew up and, or my circumstances changed and I became a good person, and that's fine. When people call me out and they say, well, isn't it true you used to, take drugs or, what, I say, yeah, I did. I was a bad person back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think eventually we'll get, some of these on, but yeah, the one I've been emailing with JD Greening, no response. Again, he's the one that's kind of fascinating me, where he's just most
Mike Rossi, Kip Litton, Jane So. Those are the big three.
Yeah, and
I'm be big, but
but what happened? Alex from the Deca Man, but it's like I'm just tired of emailing her. I mean, like, hey, let's talk. Yeah, it sounds great. Then nothing.
Did she finish the Hurt 100?
She did. Yeah, and
nice.
I think she was fine. Again, it really cut with the Deca Man, with what's again, to people who don't know, it's basically, oh gosh, I'm going to get it wrong, but it's like basically 10 triathlons, back to back to back.
It's 10 Ironman.
10 Ironman distance. Yeah.
It's an Ironman a day for 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but it's you do all the swim, then you do all the bike, then you do all the run. So you're not, there's the other version that you said. But yeah, with this one, yeah. So there's different ones, but the classic Deca is what she did, where you do the full, so you do basically the 10 Ironmans worth of swimming first, then you do the bike, then you do the run. What she is alleged to have, and what I determined she cut was really very little, but she was out saying she's going to break a record, and really the record she would have broken. There's not a whole lot of sample size, so she would have set the female record just by finishing under the official cutoff. So if she finished, she would have set the record, but she was posing, I'm going to set this record. And so she cut off relatively little, but I don't think she would have been able to finish under the cutoff if she didn't cut. So I think that's the, that was the, kind of key there. But, I think she's very...
She says she didn't.
She's very... She denies. But said she admitted to accidentally cutting a couple, then she made some up. But I think what she made up was less than what she ended up missing, and I think it's pretty clear from the GPS data. But again, it was very little, so I think she's a very talented athlete. And so, yeah, I have no doubt. I have little doubt that she finished the Hurt 100. Legitimately, I hadn't seen anything that looked suspicious. But yeah,
I think it'd be hard to cheat that one.
Yeah, well, I know there was one runner alleged to have, but which he's still in the results, and nothing's. I haven't heard from the race, and so I can't really. So I'm just leaving that one go, and keep them on the watch list, kind of thing. So I think it's going to. So please, wherever you listen to it, subscribe, rate, review. Go to Patreon, give a few bucks a month. That's helpful. Help us pay for the cost of putting these up, and there is definite costs associated to it. So at this rate, I think within about a year, I might pay back my equipment costs. So that's great, and. But no, appreciate the patrons we have, and continue, and then you can chat through there too, and give feedback, however you think we can improve, any guest suggestions, all that. So Marathon Investigation, or patreon.com/Marathon Investigation, and of course you can always go to marathoninvestigation.com, look for the Facebook groups, etc., and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Marathon Investigation Podcast. Have a questionable result to report? Visit marathoninvestigation.com to contact us, or email Derek at results@marathoninvestigation.com.
Another case closed for the Marathon's silent guardian.